Happy Friday to the faithful and welcome in to the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr. Hope all of you out there getting set to have an awesome weekend. And coming up on today's show, it's been a while since we got an injury update on Brandon Aiyuk. He injured his knee, torn ACL, MCL, week 7 of last year in that loss against the Chiefs. It happened on October 20th, and at the NFL Combine, all John Lynch said was that he's progressing well and there are some benchmarks coming up. Well, we have a new injury update on the Niners' number 1 wide receiver from ESPN's Adam Schefter, and he also shed some light on the latest trade conversations around Aiyuk as well. So all of that is coming up, but let's have some Friday fun. Just want to hear from you down in the comment section, keeping it light here. Who is your favorite Niners player ever? For me, it's Jerry Rice. We have so many different types of people who watch this show spanning generations and generations, so I'm interested to see which players you come up with. The conversation around Aiyuk, obviously, it's some of this trade discourse and conversation. If the Niners move him, it has to be before April 1st. That's when he has that 2025 and 2026 roster bonus guaranteed if he's on the team at the start of April. But also, and maybe more importantly for the sake of the Niners' 2025 season, what is the status with his knee injury? He signed that 4-year, $120 million contract, and then in week 7, he suffered as gruesome of a knee injury as you can suffer in the NFL, and it was just a disaster for San Francisco. Here's what Adam Schefter had to say about the Aiyuk situation here. He talked about that deadline for the Aiyuk trade. That's Tuesday, April 1st. That is the day that Brandon Aiyuk has a $22.85 roster bonus due. So if the 49ers don't find a trade partner for Aiyuk by Tuesday of next week, it's hard to imagine a scenario, Schefter said, any scenario under which they would wind up trading him during the season when they've already paid him close to $23 million. And look, it's not just the 2025 roster bonus that is guaranteed that Schefter's alluding to here. He has a roster bonus guaranteed if he's on the team come April 1 for 2025 of $23+ million and 2026 of over $25 million. So that's a lot of cash that's going Aiyuk's direction, which is why if you're a smart business and you want to trade him away, it just has to come before April 1. You're already eating all of this dead money, more than $80 million coming up this season for San Francisco. You trade him after that, it just makes zero sense. More from Schefter on Aiyuk here. At that point in time, they would hold on to him for the 2025 season. You wait for him to get healthy. You wait for him to come back and contribute on your roster for the season and be the great wide receiver that he can be. Now, again, there has not been a whole lot of interest because of the price and the injury concerns. Nobody wants to take on a contract when you don't know when the guy is going to be healthy again this season. So that's of note from Schefter. Not a lot of interest in Aiyuk league-wide. And that's what I've been saying here on the show, and that makes ample sense, right? You have this wide receiver who in 2023 was a second-team All-Pro. He was terrific, made the most of his opportunities, good hands, one of the best route runners in the NFL, turned into a very explosive player in 2023 as well, hooking up on a lot of long balls with Brock Purdy. He was number 2 in yards per catch behind Tyreek Hill. He was the second highest graded wide receiver in football behind Tyreek Hill as well. But when you sign that contract and you're coming off that knee injury and you're not sure when the heck he's going to play, even if you're a wide receiver starved team looking for a number 1, there's way too much risk there. And we saw a team like the New England Patriots, which last year offered Aiyuk $34 million per season. He declined going there via a sign and trade. And what did they do? They signed Stephon Diggs and gave him, $26 million in guaranteed money. He's coming off a torn ACL, but he's already working out. He could be ready for week 1. And so the Patriots were like, we'd rather go Diggs, and there's risk there, than Aiyuk. I think at this point, Aiyuk's the better player. Diggs is older. He's a little bit cheaper, but there's more risk with Aiyuk. As for the Aiyuk contract situation, could not have played out worse for San Francisco, right? Given everything that transpired, then the injury that took place. If the Niners would have signed him around this time last year, he even said a deal could have gotten done. Niners could have had him at about $25 million per year. That's what Devontae Smith is making with the Eagles. That's less than Jalen Waddle. But because the Niners waited and waited and waited, the wide receiver market got reset on multiple occasions. And then San Francisco was backed into a corner where they had to give him $30 million per season. And then he misses all of training camp, doesn't play at all in the preseason. He is ready for week one as the contract got done before that, after that long hold-in with all of that drama, him taking to social media, him pouting, all of the weird antics with that. But then to start the year, he looked terrible. He was out of shape. He was not dynamic. He was lacking speed and explosion. And then he got into that weird scuffle with Kyle Shanahan because he wore the wrong shorts at practice, got undressed on the field. It's not hard to wear the proper shorts to practice. And this is after Aiyuk got paid. It's like, bro, you got paid and now you're acting like this. Just don't understand it. And then in week 7, takes that hit below the waist against the Chiefs. Knee got bent in the wrong direction, out for the year. And that investment looking like a bad one for San Francisco potentially. But what we have forgotten about amidst the ugliness of what happened with that Aiyuk contract saga is that the guy can play. He's an elite wide receiver in this league when he's healthy. And I think what's so impressive about Aiyuk is what he's been able to do with the lack of targets as compared to the other upper echelon wide receivers across the NFL. He's made the most of his opportunities. To have 78 catches, more than 1,000 yards, and 8 touchdowns in 2022 with the lack of targets and all of the other weapons on this team, it's pretty incredible, right? And that was when he had to play alongside multiple different quarterbacks in 2022. Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Brock Purdy. And then in 2023, when he was looking for that new deal, has the best year of his career. 75 catches. That's 3 less than what he had the prior year, yet he had more than 300 yards more in 2023 as compared to 2022. And the 17.9 yards per catch. The other thing with Aiyuk, which is so glaring and impressive, is that every year that he was in the NFL prior to last year when he got hurt, his numbers went up, the production was better, and he improved as a player, and his route running and footwork, some of the best that you will see in the NFL. And that's why I wanted the Niners to sign him to a contract extension. Now, does it make sense in hindsight to pay a player $30 million per year when you're a run-heavy team? Probably not in hindsight. But again, because the Niners waited, the price tag went up. And in 2024, to get that immediately after signing that deal, 25 catches, 374 yards, no touchdowns, that sucks for San Francisco. Probably played a role in why they wanted to cut some costs this offseason, because they spent more than $330 million in cash on the 2024 roster, and they went 6-11. Now, he did have that huge game against Arizona in week 5 where you're like, okay, Aiyuk's starting to turn the corner. 2 weeks later, he suffers that bad season-ending injury. The other key element to Aiyuk's future, of course, is the injury, which is what we're about to talk about now. How is the knee? When will he be back on the field? And when he does come back, what does he look like? Well, we finally have maybe a timeline for when Aiyuk could return. Adam Schefter saying this on his podcast as well. From what I understand, Dr. Neal ElAttrache is pleased with his progress. He's coming along. I would think he's ready to play by midseason, and there might be a team out there that is willing to basically not give up very much to get a great player coming off an injury. But the point is, if that trade doesn't materialize by Tuesday, it's not happening at all, because the Niners aren't going to pay a $23 million roster bonus and then wind up dealing him this summer before the trade deadline. It's not going to happen. So we officially are on the clock for a Brandon Aiyuk trade in the next week, which again Hasn't happened yet. Don't know if it will happen. John Lynch floated the idea. It doesn't sound like it's likely. But if it's going to happen, the only time it will happen would be in the next week. And, of course, we've talked about that a lot on the show over the last couple of weeks. Thanks to medical advancements, you do hope that Aiyuk can return to the player that he once was. He's still young in his middle portion of his 20s. I do have some play style concerns with that knee, though, because if he loses some speed, he loses some explosiveness, think about the strengths of his game, what makes him unique and special. It's footwork, it's the route running, and it's the suddenness of his game to get in and out of cuts. Schefter on the trade compensation, if the Niners do trade him away, teams wouldn't have to give up much at all. So if the Niners were to move BA, it would simply be to get out of that deal, not pay the roster bonus for the next 2 years. There would still be some dead money involved that they would have to eat, but you'd ease yourselves up financially in a certain way. So the question of the day, will Aiyuk be on the Niners in 2025? Type on for on the roster or off for off the roster. Share your thoughts with me and predict it down in the comments section. More to get to here on the show, but 49ers draft hats were just dropped by the NFL this morning. These are the draft hats that players will be wearing once they're drafted by the Niners. And some of these hats in years past have been kind of cheesy. I love these. The color scheme, the logo, the look, available in black, as well as kind of that vanilla color that I'm wearing right now, little off-white. If you don't like this type of style, which is what we're showing you here, there's the same look, but the dad hat style, if you like that, where it's a little bit tighter on your head. So get them today. Thanks to our friends at Fanatics, chatsports.com/49drafthats. That's chatsports.com/49drafthats. Get your Niners draft hats today. Look fresh in the process and rep San Francisco. As part of this conversation, there's the report from Adam Schefter that hopefully Brandon Aiyuk comes off that knee injury around the midway portion of 2025. If he can't come back for a while, what does the wide receiver situation look like for the Niners? And which players have to step up for head coach Kyle Shanahan? The Niners wide receiver room right now without Brandon Aiyuk, this is your wide receiver core going into the NFL draft. And this is also a very thin wide receiver class. Ricky Pearsall, first-round pick from last year, taken 31st overall, had to battle a lot to start his NFL career with the gunshot wound to his chest just being one of the injuries that he had to recover from. At the end of the year, you saw a spark. You saw some ability. You saw some juice. Can that carry over, and can he continue to improve as he also continues to work on that on-field relationship with Brock Purdy? You clearly saw some ability. Do I think it was a little bit of a reach to take him at 31? I do. I think he was more of a second-round pick, but you saw what the Niners believed he could be at the end of last year. The big game against Detroit, caught a contested touchdown on Brian Branch, and then in Week 18, another really tough contested touchdown grab against the Arizona Cardinals. Jawan Jennings, if he didn't get thrown out in that aforementioned Week 18 against Arizona, he probably has 1,000 yards. And he's not a player who's going to blow you away with his speed, but he can win at the line. He can fare well against man. He's very physical, really good hands. He's extremely clutch. As we know, he's been known to come through in the clutchest of moments. That's why they call him third and Jawan. Playoffs, regular season, always plays his best when the pressure cooker is on. And the contested catch ability is very impressive. But he's also decisive as a player. And I think that's why he's able to get open downfield despite that lack of speed. Demarcus Robinson, I think, is one of the more underrated signings in NFL free agency because this is a player who you're not paying a lot of money to, who can be a vertical threat for Brock Purdy, but is also good in the red zone. And last year, he produced well when Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua were out. He had a really good season. More than 500 yards, more than 16 yards per catch, and 7 touchdowns. he can do a lot. And ideally, once Aiyuk comes back, that's your wide receiver 4. That's better than a player like Chris Conley. Jacob Cowing, he has some wiggle too, and he can be utilized as a gadget guy. He has that suddenness and short area quickness and explosion to his game. And on jet sweeps, end arounds, bubble screens, and on the long ball, I think that he can find success there. Big sophomore campaign coming up for him, and he was an extremely productive player in college. And then the Niners seem to be very high on Tariq Owens, a UDFA, very raw, didn't start his football career until late, more of a basketball player. Obviously, the family bloodline runs there with the Niners and through his veins because he is the son of Terrell Owens. A little bit of a rocky start last offseason after he was UDFA because he's raw. Then he suffered that injury, but he really started to come on in training camp, and the Niners seem to really like him as a player. And if Aiyuk can't play for half the year, he will have an opportunity. No Aiyuk also means that Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy have to make it work. They have to rebound off of porous 2024 seasons where Kyle Shanahan didn't coach his best and Brock Purdy did not play his best. And if Purdy is without his number 1 wide receiver, he has to make ends meet with the wide receivers who we just talked about. And that's why I think that getting a Purdy contract extension done sooner rather than later to get him on the field, to get that connection working with his weapons is very important. And without Aiyuk, you hope that Christian McCaffrey can stay healthy because CMC is a player who can make up for the void of not having BA as a runner, as a pass catcher, and you hope that McCaffrey can salvage what was an awful red zone offense last year. Niners certainly missed him with the versatility to his game. Even little things like pass protection, Christian McCaffrey is good at. When he's healthy, he's one of the top offensive skill players in the National Football League and one of the most valuable. George Kittle will also become more of a staple in the pass game. I like that. Take some hits off his body. Some people overrate how much he has to block, but as he starts to get older, especially if you sign him to a contract extension, and I think the Niners want him around, him and Fred Warner, the fabric of this organization, the leaders of this organization, the heart and soul of this Niners team. Take the hits away from Kittle. Use Luke Farrell more as a blocker. Free up George Kittle more in the pass game, where since 2022, his touchdown numbers and his production, it's really come alive with Brock Purdy. They have a great connection working on the field. And so without BA, use Kittle more as a traditional tight end. How about as a slot wide receiver as well? If you're getting ready to have a fantastic weekend. Hopefully you thought that show was fantastic. Type LFG down in the comment section about to join Larry Krueger on his show, on the Krug Show. We'll have great content coming out throughout the weekend. Another video later today because that's what we do.